Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the most overpriced junk LEGO has ever given us, that being 75401 Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor. This set just released on January 1st with 290 pieces and a retail price of $45 US, which is just ridiculous. Now, I wasn't being entirely serious by calling it junk because the model itself is actually kind of decent, which you'll see later on in the video, but the price is just horrendous. For context, the last Jedi Interceptor LEGO made was in 2020, and that had a retail price of $30 US, which adjusted for inflation is about $37 in 2025, so theoretically this set should be about $35 to $40, but no, it's $45, which is just such an awful reach on LEGO's part. It's absolutely unacceptable. And even worse, Jedi Bob's Interceptor that just released about 4 months ago in August has a retail price of $40. So in the span of 4 months, LEGO has bumped their Starfighter price up from $40 to $45. So with that being said, before we even take a look at the actual build, I'm taking off 2.5 points. It's automatically starting at a 7.5 out of 10. But price aside, I think the box art looks decent, especially on the back where there's this pretty cool action scene that looks like Dathomir. I'm not really sure, but it looks cool. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 3 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a sticker sheet with 11 stickers on it. But now moving on to the minifigures, first up here we have R7A7. This is the second time that LEGO has ever made this figure, and it's clearly an upgrade from the original one we got back in 2009. It's fairly simple, but it gets the job done, and I like this droid's colorway. For some reason, the dark red with the green just looks interesting to me, although it would have been kind of nice if it had some sort of back printing. I mean, this set is $45 after all. Next up here we have Anakin Skywalker based off his look in Clone Wars Season 5, and LEGO actually did a great job with this figure. I love the black and brown robes on him on the front and the back, and they also did a surprisingly good job with his face print, as you can see here, especially on his second face, which is a bit more angry and aggressive looking. And then lastly here we have Ahsoka, and just like Anakin, this is a great looking figure. The printing detail on the front and the back is about as high quality as you'd expect for a modern day figure, and they actually use those new movable short legs on her. From what I know, this is the first time they've used these legs on an Ahsoka minifigure, and it looks really good. And then along with that, of course, she's going to have a double-sided face along with her double lightsabers. The set might be overpriced, but I have to say, I actually like this minifigure lineup. For $45, it would have been nice to maybe get a fourth one, but the ones we do have are great. Anyways though, now moving on to the actual model itself, I have to say, in person, it definitely looks a lot better than it does in the product images. But it's not perfect though, and the main issue for me with it is the cockpit. Well, first off, I have to say the cockpit is printed, and the print itself does look really good, but as you can see here, they tried to make the cockpit shape more accurate, where it's bigger in the back and then slopes down and is smaller in the front, but to me at least, it just turned out to look kind of weird. It's kind of tacky looking and takes away the smooth look that these Jedi Interceptor cockpits are supposed to have, especially in the front here where there's an extra plate in between the windshield piece and the actual cockpit, making it sort of stick out too far. For comparison, here is the 2014 Anakin Jedi Interceptor that I had to dig through my bin to find. And as you can see, they're both relatively the same size and they actually look really nice together, but the older style cockpit on Anakin's is a lot smoother, and the cockpit piece itself presses up right against the windshield piece on the front, giving it a much smoother look and doesn't leave this lip on it like on Ahsoka's. But shaping aside, perhaps the most annoying thing about this cockpit is that there's actually nothing holding it down in place. The Technic pieces they use to actually open and close the cockpit is a good design. There's just nothing holding it in place in the front, whereas on Anakin's there is this one stud on the front that does hold it down in place. And this isn't really a big deal for the reasons you might think. Like when you hold it upside down, it does take some aggressive shaking to actually get it to start coming open, but what I found most annoying about it was just that you always have to pick it up from the back. If you try to pick it up by the cockpit piece, it just opens and kind of falls out of your hand, and I personally just found this kind of annoying. But moving away from the outside of the cockpit, on the inside you're going to find a very simple interior with a tiny stickered control panel where you can obviously grab Ahsoka and sit her in the cockpit seat and then fold the cockpit back down. And then on the very bottom, you're actually going to find 2 clips to hold both of her lightsabers, which is really nice. And also another thing I have to say about the bottom of the model is that I appreciate how LEGO kind of went out of their way to just smooth it off down here and make it look kind of nice. It's not just straight anti-studs, there's actually some decent detail down here. The engine thrusters on the back of the model look decent. I couldn't find any pictures online of the back of Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor, but I guess this is how they look, although I do have to say they are pretty small and look a bit awkward. I definitely like the look of the bigger ones on Anakin's from 2014 a lot better. Now the cockpit area might be a bit rough, but the part of this set that definitely shines are the wings. The dark red and white looks very good to me at least, and LEGO did a great job at making all the patterns on it. There's also quite a bit of sticker detailing, the main ones being on the wing foils. They're red with these big white swooshes on them that I guess are supposed to represent Targruta horns. Either way though, they look awesome. They definitely give the wings such a sleek look. And then on the inside of the foils, you're gonna have those gray sort of carbon looking stickers that are on all the LEGO Jedi Interceptors. And then there's actually 2 more stickers right next to the cockpit on these pieces that I'm pretty sure are actually new. I might be wrong on that, but I've never seen them before in a LEGO Star Wars set, and with these stickers on them, they definitely give it a sleek look. On the front and the middle, you're gonna find the 2 main blasters that are very simple, but they get the job done and they look good. I like them in this gray color. And then on the middle of the wings on the sides, you're gonna have these 2 smaller laser cannons that look really awesome. They're super subtle, but they give it a cool look, and I didn't even know these were on Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor, but if you look at the actual ship, they're there. But again, the wings on this set do look really good, and they do actually blend with the cockpit pretty well. It's just the shaping of the cockpit is really off. And then as you'd expect, you can take R7A7 and sit him in his little droid slot on the side of the ship right here, which will complete the look of your Interceptor. And then the last and final play feature is that on the bottom here, of course, there are 2 spring-loaded shooters that you can fire as you please or not fire at all. Overall, for the most part, I actually like the build in this set. The colors are great, the red and white is super vibrant and will definitely sort of brighten up your collection. And like I said over and over again, the brick build patterns and the shaping and the details on the wings look great. Really just the only problem with this build is the cockpit. And if I was to give this set a rating out of 10 on just the build and the minifigures, I would give it a solid 8.5. LEGO did a pretty decent job on it. But like I said at the beginning of the video, the price is just absolutely awful, so unfortunately I'm giving this set a 6 out of 10. Now if you were to ask me if I'd recommend this set to you guys, I have to say if you're someone that does not own any of the Jedi Interceptors, I would get this set when it goes on sale, because there's really no telling when LEGO's gonna make another one. They don't make these very often, and they're just really awesome ships to have in your collection. So if you don't own a Jedi Interceptor, get this when it goes on sale. But if you're someone that does own one or multiple of them, I would just pass on it unless you really want it for some reason. Anyways though, let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see the link screen right. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75402 ARC-170 Starfighter. This set just released on January 1st with 497 pieces and a retail price of $70 US, which is actually a pretty fair deal, especially compared to some other sets that just released. And after 15 years, the wait is finally over. We have a new ARC-170. And the first thing I have to say is I'm so happy that it actually includes 3 clone pilots, with one of them actually being Oddball, a character LEGO has never made before. A Jedi in this set would have been cool, but not at the expense of replacing one of these clone troopers. I never liked how Kit Fisto always replaced the 3rd clone trooper in the 2010 model because he just looked weird sitting inside the ship, but now with this model we actually have 3 clone troopers, and I'm very happy with that. The front box art also looks really good, being based off of Caden and Ammonia, although unfortunately at the bottom left it has the 332nd trooper, which is the box art they use on Clone Wars sets, and you usually wouldn't see me complain about this. However, because this is an episode 3 set like others, I do think it would have been a lot cooler if there was a Darth Vader figure right here. Anyways though, on the back of the box you're going to find a cool picture of the set in what appears to be a very dark and gloomy Venator hanger, along with all of its play features and different functionalities. And then actually opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 4 separately numbered bags, along with your instruction manual, as well as a sticker sheet with a total of 16 separate stickers, which is kind of crazy. But now taking a look at the minifigures, first up here we have R4P44, and this is a very simple astromech droid that has a basic dark green and white colorway. There's really not much to see here, but LEGO did do as good as they needed to on it. And if you're wondering, here's what it looks like to the one that came in the 2010 ARC-170, and they are pretty much exactly the same, which I didn't even realize until I actually compared them for this video. There's just some very subtle differences here and there, but to the untrained eye, they are pretty much exactly the same. But now actually moving on to the figures we care about most, being the clone pilots, and I have to say these guys are pretty much perfect. LEGO did a great job on them. As you can see, the only differences between them are their helmet prints, with Oddball on the left, Captain Jag in the middle, and then just a standard pilot on the right. These guys really do look incredible. I have no complaints about them. Great printing on the helmets, great printing on the torsos, on the front and the back, and they also got new face prints, which looks surprisingly accurate to what we see in episode 3. And if you're wondering, here is Captain Jag in the standard pilot compared to the 2010 Captain Jag and the 2010 standard pilot. Those figures were good for their time period, but as you can see, LEGO has upgraded them significantly, and the ones we have today are noticeably better. Overall, I'm very happy with this minifigure lineup. In my head, it's clearly an upgrade from the 2010 model. Again, a Jedi would have been cool, but I'd rather have the 3rd clone pilot. Although in a perfect world, I guess we would get a Jedi on top of what's already here. Although unfortunately, the figures might actually be the best part of this set, because now actually moving on to the build, I have to say I'm a bit underwhelmed by it. And the first thing I gotta talk about is the wings, because man, they are really short, way shorter than they need to be. Especially the smaller ones on the top and the bottom that actually fold open, they're just super short. They don't really do the look of the ARC-170 much justice, and also the wings themselves don't open wide enough. It gets even worse when you compare it to the 2010 model, which I have right here. As you can see, its wings are proportionally proportionally much longer and they open wider, giving it a much more aggressive and sort of dramatic look, which this newer one just doesn't really seem to have. And no, it's not just because it's a smaller model, it's because the wings don't open wide enough and they're not long enough compared to the size of the cockpit, which just makes it kind of underwhelming in my head at least. However, one thing it definitely does have over the 2010 model is the actual functionality to open the wings. As you can see here, there's just this switch on the bottom at the back that you just slide back and forth and the wings just very easily pop open and close back. It's a very simple design that was actually pretty fun to build, and honestly it's also just kind of a cool function to look at with the Technic pieces on the sides moving, as you can see here. Although one thing that is kind of annoying is that when you slide this lever, the wings don't open all the way, so you kind of have to go in there and manually pull them open a little bit further. And like I said, it's a significant upgrade from the 2010 model because it just had a gear on the back that you had to twist and twist, and it would literally take like 30 seconds to open the wings. And from my experience, it's always just super tedious when I need to close and open the wings on this model. Now, as for the actual detail on the wings themselves, it's pretty decent. I don't really have much to say. On the smaller wings, there's two stickers, one on the end and the other one being the Republic Navy symbol, with the bottom wings being exactly the same. And then there's actually these stickers on the bigger wings that are kind of hidden that you can't see unless you open them up. Now, as for the big cannons on the side go, I don't really like them, and the spring-loaded shooters sticking out the back don't really help much either. I know LEGO really likes to include these, but on this set, they just don't look very good on the outside of the wings like this. And also, they replace what should be the smaller cannon. The 2010 model has both the cannons, the smaller one being on top and the bigger one being on the bottom, but on the newer one, it's just the spring-loaded shooter and one cannon, and it just doesn't look that great. I honestly think LEGO should have tried to incorporate these shooters in the nose or body of the ship somehow, not on the ends of the wings like this. And also, not to mention, the cannons that we do have on the ends of the wings are way too short, especially compared to the 2010 model. They really should go all the way about to the front of the ship, or maybe 2 or 3 studs short, but as you can see here, they only go about halfway, and it just does not look how it's supposed to. The engine intakes on the front, on the other hand, actually do look pretty good. I wish LEGO could have somehow made them a little bit bigger, but what we do have looks good. They're very sleek, and they have those nice angled fins on the inside. And then following the engines from the front all the way to the back, the actual thrusters themselves look good too. They're a very basic design, similar to what we saw on the 2010 model, but it works and it looks good. The front nose area is probably where this build shines the most. They really did get the shaping down pretty much perfectly. It's extremely clean and sleek looking, and there's a few stickers on the side as well as one on the top to add some detail. It also does a good job at just supporting the front area of the ship when you have it sitting flat like this, along with this big brick built sort of block in the middle area that holds the rest of the ship up. Now, the shaping on the front of the ship is probably where it shines the most, but the worst part about this ship has to be the cockpit, specifically the stickers on the windshields. And I mean, holy crap, these look horrendous. As you can see on the box here, they're supposed to be white, and they're advertised to be white, but that is nothing how they look in person. They're just this ugly gray looking color. It kind of looks like wet paper. They're just really rough, to say the least. Actually, no, I'm gonna say the most. They're horrendous. They're ugly. I feel like there's really no way LEGO wouldn't have known this would be a problem with these stickers, so they should have just printed these pieces if it was gonna end up being this bad. But stickers aside, as you'd expect, you can very easily lift all 3 of them up to access some very basic cockpit interiors. The front one having a sticker control panel, the middle one actually having a printed control panel, and the back gunner seat just having an extra seat, no control panel. And I do have to say, I like the tan pieces in the interior. It's super simple, but the tan looks better than maybe black or gray, in my opinion. And then obviously, as you'd expect, you can very easily load up all 3 of your troopers and put Captain Jag in the very front seat, and then grab your astromech droid and put him in the droid area. And like the 2010 one, you have to put the droid in before you close the cockpits back down, because they actually sort of cover his shoulders and hold him in place, which I think is cool because I like the look of just his head popping out and not his entire body. And despite the cockpit windshields themselves looking bad, the shaping around the cockpit is done very well. Just like the front area, it's sleek and clean with some stickers here and there. And then on the very back, you're gonna have your rear cannons or a turret on these ball joints that actually have a pretty good range of motion. You can really point them wherever you want to, and they look really solid, although I wish they were just a tad bit longer. So after 15 years of waiting, does this set live up to the hype and our expectations? And honestly, I have to say, for me at least, no, not really. Like I said at the beginning, I'm just a bit underwhelmed by the model, but at the same time, this is also coming from someone that owns one of the previous versions. I do think if you're someone that doesn't have an ARC-170, you'll really enjoy this set, but for me at least, there's just a few blatant problems here and there. The wings are too short, the cannons on the wings are too short, I don't like how the spring-loaded shooters replace the second cannon that's supposed to be on the wings, and then the worst part by far is those cockpit stickers. Holy, they look so bad. But at least it actually has a pretty decent price, unlike Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor. So I'm feeling a solid 7.8 out of 10 for this set, and when it comes to if I would recommend this set to you guys or not, I feel like no matter what I say, most of you are going to go out and buy it anyways because we've been waiting on this for 15 years. So if you don't own one of the previous ARC-170s, go get it. This is a decent model. I think most of you guys will enjoy it, but if you're someone that does own one of the previous ones and good condition, especially the 2010, you'll probably end up being underwhelmed by this set. Anyways though, let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75403 Grogu with Hover Pram. This set just released on January 1st and is the biggest and most expensive 2025 LEGO Star Wars set so far, with 1,048 pieces and a retail price of $100 US, which is a bit expensive, although I'll talk about that later. One thing I do want to say though is that I'm honestly impressed that The Mandalorian is still popular enough for LEGO to be making sets like this from it 6 years after it initially released. I don't know, it just shows to me that not all the Disney Star Wars shows are that bad. But anyways, as you can see here, there's not much going on the front of the box, just a nice little render of the set. Same thing on the back, where you're gonna have a picture of Grogu out of his pram, as well as a few images of the play features and functionalities. Now opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 11 separately numbered bags, as well as one instruction manual for Grogu and then one instruction manual for the pram, and a small little sticker sheet containing 6 stickers. And one funny thing I wanted to show while I was building this set is that in the middle of Grogu, there's this tiny little green heart piece that gets covered up. I just thought it was kind of funny how it's a little Easter egg representing Grogu's little green heart, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And speaking of Grogu himself is the only figure that comes in this set, and as you can see here, the actual figure is just the same Grogu we have been getting for the past 5 years now. I'm sure most of you guys own this figure. There's not really much to see here. His pram, on the other hand, is a little bit different. It's a bit smaller and just a bit sleeker and smoothed out, which I honestly think looks pretty good. And then obviously, since this is a buildable character, it's going to come with the printed display plaque. You can pause and read this if you want to. There's not a whole lot to see here, but it is kind of interesting. But now moving on to the actual build, it looks surprisingly really good. Now one thing you might notice is that Grogu himself is actually way too big compared to his pram. As you can see here in the back of the second instruction manual, there is a picture of Grogu and his pram from The Mandalorian, and as you can see, Grogu is significantly smaller than the actual pram itself, but then in this build he is way bigger, and this might bother some of you guys, but honestly it doesn't really bother me at all, just because I think it still looks good. Taking a look at Grogu himself, it is a very small build, but I think LEGO did about everything they needed to on it. His ears can move slightly up and down. I wish they pointed up a bit more, but the range of motion they do have is good, and then his head can also slightly move side to side and turn around, all this allowing for you to make some pretty decent poses with him, to put his ears down and give him that cute look and everything. Now I have seen some people online talking about how his face looks pretty uncanny, and I definitely see where people are coming from with that, especially with those printed eyepieces, but I don't think it's as bad as people are saying, because I think for the most part LEGO did a good job on his face. On the back of his head there's really nothing to see, but what you might also notice back here is these 2 gear pieces sticking out of his back, and this is a great play feature because basically you turn those and it just allows for you to easily move his arms up and down. It's a super simple feature that I'm not even sure was needed, but I do have to say it's unique and pretty fun to play with. His hands are very simple. There's just 3 fingers on them, but they do have inverted studs, allowing him to hold some items. Here you have the knob from the Razor Crest, and then over here you get 2 Navarro nummies. That's what it says on the plaque. But by far the best inclusion in my opinion is the little Sorgan frog. It's a very simple build that just has a sticker on the back and a printed eye, and his legs and arms can move around a little bit, and then he just sits flat on the ground. But for some reason, to me at least, it just looks so good when Grogu is holding it in his hand. If you ever find yourself picking up this set, this is such a great way to display him. On the bottom, you can see that his feet are kind of there. There's just some pieces representing that they're under his robe, although I wish they stuck out just to one plate, because I do think it looks kind of weird how he just sits completely flat on a surface. In my eyes, it makes it look a bit incomplete, and I wish there was just a tiny bit of elevation from his feet sticking out. It would make it look a bit more natural. Now taking a look at the pram build, despite it being too small like I showed earlier, I'm actually pretty impressed by it. I think LEGO did a great job on the shaping, although I do have to say it was a pretty repetitive build. Anyways though, on each side here you're going to find some stickers, as well as some yellow pieces to add some details, as well as another sticker right on the front, and then also on the front here you can get just a good look at the shaping they were able to pull off. It looks great in my opinion, and they used some pretty cool techniques to pull off this look. The back of the pram looks good too, although unfortunately there is this pretty noticeable gap that goes right across the middle between where I guess the hood on top meets the actual top of the bowl. It is pretty noticeable, but besides that, this back area looks really good. And speaking of the top portion that I called the hood, I don't really know what else to call it. It's pretty good. The main portion of it, as you can see here, is just 2 large pieces that are connected together at the top with some clips. Although I do have to say, for the price you're paying for this set, I do think LEGO should have included some type of feature where this portion could actually open and close like it does in the show. The stand on the bottom that actually holds up the pram is very simple, just a little black base pretty much. And as you can see here, it very easily comes off, just a little Technic pin that holds it in, as well as some studs. Taking a look at the inside of the pram, frame here, there's not a whole lot to see, but I think LEGO did do a good job. There's lots of great shaping in here, and the brown really does add a nice contrast with the white. And there's also some very minor details towards the back at the top, as you can see here. Now, those two 1x2 pieces in the middle right there is actually where Grogu goes. You just very easily sit him in there right on top of those two pieces, and this is the full look of the build. And in my opinion, this is such a great display piece. I know most of you guys are not interested in this set at all, but for what it is, I think LEGO did a really good job. There's multiple ways to display it. I love the inclusion of the different items, especially the frog. It's just super unique and looks great. Although unfortunately, I do think it's a bit overpriced because the build isn't very big. It's $100 and the build feels like maybe an $80 or $90 build. And again, I think for $100, it would have been nice if there was some functionality with the actual pram itself where it could at least open and close. So because of those things, I'm feeling a solid 8.8 out of 10 for this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see the on screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at a set that I honestly thought would never be made, that being 75404 Acclamator-class assault ship. This set just released on January 1st with 450 pieces and a retail price of $50 US, which is very overpriced, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Right now I want to talk about how I'm just surprised that we actually have an Acclamator now. For years, this ship has been requested by a fairly niche group of people within the LEGO fanbase, and I can't lie, I was definitely one of them, but I just always assumed LEGO kind of ignored this or didn't acknowledge it and that it wouldn't ever be made. But now in 2025, we actually have one in midi-scale form. I always find myself going back to this interview that Solid Brick Studios did with the LEGO Star Wars design team back in like 2023, I believe. And in that interview or panel, whatever you want to call it, one of the designers does explain that they are aware of what the fan base wants and the sets we are requesting. And at the time of that video's release, that was a bit hard to believe. But fast forward to 2025, we have a new ARC-170 and this Acclamator. And despite these sets definitely not being perfect, it does show that there actually is a bit of a weight to the words he said in that interview, and that LEGO is kind of going in the right direction of sets that the fan base actually wants and requests. But enough talk about that stuff, let's actually take a look at this set itself. On the back of the box, you're going to see another render of the build, as well as some dimensions in the bottom right corner, and then a picture of the Acclamator from episode 2 on the bottom left corner. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 4 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual, and surprisingly no sticker sheet, which is very nice. And since this is an 18+ set, inside the instruction manual in the first few pages, you're going to find some cool information about the ship in Star Wars, with lots of cool facts that you can pause and read if you want to, and then straight from there you're going to go into your build process. And also while you're building, on one of the pages there is this little paragraph that pops up at the bottom that's just some more information about the ship that you can pause and read if you want to. Now unfortunately there are no minifigures in this set, so jumping straight into the build, I have to say it looks really good. I like this a lot, but man, it is tiny. Here it is compared to the midi-scale invisible hand that released in March of 2024 that also retails for $50 US, and clearly they have different shapes, but as you can tell, the invisible hand is just a bit of a bigger and beefier build. It feels like it's more worth its price. And then also on top of that, it also has 100 more pieces than the Acclamator, yet they're both the same price. And again, they have vastly different shapes, but when you have the builds in person, you can tell that the invisible hand just feels like it's closer to being worth its price point. And this is very disappointing because I really like this build, but it just should not be more than $40. $50 is too much. And it sucks because I can't ignore this. I'm gonna have to take points off for it being overpriced. And if you would ask me last year, I wouldn't have thought that these midi-scale sets needed minifigures, but since LEGO has once again slightly pushed the envelope of these retail prices, I think for what they're charging us, an exclusive minifigure is needed. Just a simple phase 1 clone trooper like you see here would have worked wonders for this set. It probably would have made a lot more people buy it too. Again, if you would have asked me back in March of 2024 with the midi-scale sets that released then, I would have said that I didn't care that they don't have minifigures, because my thought process was, well, the original midi-scale sets from 2009 and 2010 didn't have figures, so I didn't really care that these ones didn't. But LEGO has raised the price once again, so a figure is needed at least, or make it cheaper. But enough talk about the price, let's actually focus on the build now, and like I said earlier, I like it a lot. The first thing you'll notice is that they went with the Clone Wars version of the Acclamator, the one with the red stripes, and this was the obvious right choice because the ones for episode 2 are cool, but the all gray is just pretty bland, and I think it wouldn't look great as a LEGO set, so I'm very happy they went with the Clone Wars one because it looks great and all these pieces are printed. Although one thing that might annoy some people is that the red on the print is actually slightly darker than the red from the brick-built stripe that goes down the middle. It's not super noticeable, but it is there and it might bother people, but I don't really think it's a big deal. Speaking of the stripe that goes down the middle though, I think LEGO did a great job with the technique they used, all the way to the very front where you're gonna find just 2 little gray pieces that add some detail. The bridge is very simple, but LEGO did a great job on it. It's just as accurate as it needs to be and represents the bridge of an Acclamator very well, and even the small area at the bottom that slopes up to the bridge is very good too. It's really just some simple slope pieces, but it communicates the look very well. The engines are probably my favorite part of this build. There's only 4 of them, but I think they look really good, and honestly, just this whole back area in general looks really good with the fin sticking out and everything. I like how they were able to fit this much detail into this relatively small area. And again, like I said, those engines just look great. There's also some detail and shaping on the bottom of the ship as well. On the front, there's not a whole lot going on, but it is surprisingly accurate to how Acclamators actually look on their bottom side. And then around to the back side of the bottom is where you're going to find the only functionality within this set, and that's the big hangar bay doors that can fold down, and on the inside you're going to see some little white studs that are supposed to represent some clone troopers. This is a great feature that I'm glad LEGO included because it's just fun to play with and the functionality is interesting. Although as you can see, there are those bright green and orange Technic pieces that show through when you open these up. I mean, it's definitely a nitpick on my part because they are covered up. It's not like anyone is looking at the bottom side of this thing, but it would have been kind of nice if they were maybe gray or black. But then from there, you can just very easily fold these hangar bay doors back up. And if you're wondering what the stand looks like, I mean, it's just your basic midi scale stand. It's sleek and simple and looks good with the printed plaque on the front, and there's no special way that it connects to the actual build. It just uses some inverted studs. Like I said earlier, I like this build a lot. It's pretty much perfect in my eyes. There are a few nitpicks I had here and there, so if I had to rate the build alone, I'd probably give it like a 9.8 out of 10, but for the set as a whole, including the price point, it is overpriced. I don't think it should be more than $40. I think most people could agree on that, so sadly, just because of the price, I'm gonna take 2 points off and give it an 8 out of 10. If it was reasonably priced at $40, I could see myself giving this at least a 9.5, maybe even a 10 out of 10, but no, the price ruined it once again. And if you're someone that doesn't own any of the midi scale sets and wants to get one, unless you can find this on sale, I would just pass on it. The Invisible Hand or even the Millennium Falcon from last year are way better options. So let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at a set that I've been waiting on LEGO to make for years, that being 75405 One Starcruiser. This set just released on January 1st with 559 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. And no, I haven't been waiting on a midi scale Home 1 for years. I've just been waiting on a Home 1 in general from LEGO. For some reason, they just never make Rebel capital ships besides the Tantivs, which I've never understood, especially with the Home 1, because it's really the Rebel capital ship. It belongs to one of the most famous characters in all of Star Wars and leads the Rebel fleet in the Battle of Endor. It's a very iconic ship that LEGO has just ignored for years, and no, the 2009 playset does not count. So I'm just very happy that we finally have this thing. It's not a playset, which is what I want the most, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. Anyways though, on the back of the box you're going to find just another angle of the set, along with some dimensions in the bottom right corner, as well as a picture of the actual ship in the bottom left corner. And then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 5 separately numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and no sticker sheet, which was a surprise. And since this is an 18+ set, on the inside of the instruction manual, you're going to find some very cool information about the set and the ship itself in Star Wars. There's a lot of cool stuff in here that you can pause and read if you want to. And then throughout the build process, you're actually going to find 3 of these little pop-up paragraphs. The first one talking about Ahsoka Tano, Hera, and R2-D2. The second one talking about the little miniature A-Wing that is included. And the third one talking about Admiral Akbar. But now jumping straight into the build itself, since there are no figures, I have to say, I like this thing a lot. LEGO did a phenomenal job on this. I mean, it is a pretty complex ship, which is actually probably why it took them so long to make it, but in my eyes, they did a very good job here. On the very front, you're going to see some great shaping and angles, where LEGO used some pretty satisfying and fun techniques to pull this shape off. This is probably the least detailed area of the ship, but it still looks really good, but it gets way better when you move on to the middle area. This is where there is the most amount of detail. There's so much going on with all the shaping and different colors and stuff, but at the same time, it's not like there's really much to talk about. There's just a lot of detail to look at, but I mean, still, I think LEGO did a great job. I love how they were able to pull off the complex shape of this ship and have all these little details like the various different colors sprinkled throughout and also the little blue windows on the side. It just looks great. Again, there's not a lot of individual things to point out. It just looks good as a whole. The bridges also look good too. I do think they maybe could have used a different piece. I'm not really sure which one, but I think they could have a bit of a different design, although that's definitely a tiny nitpick on my part. They look as good as they need to. You also might have noticed that off to the side back here, there is a little mini miniature Nebulan B frigate that is included. It comes off very easily. It's just held on by this transparent rod that sticks out the side, and it is an extremely simple build, but it communicates the look pretty well. And I guess you could technically just put it off to the side wherever you want on the ship. It's gonna look good anywhere. Now, as you guys might know, usually the engines are my favorite part of most LEGO capital ships, and the engines on this set definitely don't disappoint. They look awesome. They're super small compared to engines on maybe like a Star Destroyer or a Venator, but the staggered positioning of them just looks really cool to me. Now, the only real feature or functionality, I guess, of this build is that the whole entire left side can easily come off to reveal a bit of an interior with some nice transparent blue pieces that kind of represent the hangar doors. At the back, you're going to find R2-D2, Harris and Dula, as well as Ahsoka, and then in the middle, you're going to find a very tiny little A-wing build, which I definitely would try to pull out of here and show you guys, but I honestly don't really want to take apart this whole build just to do that. But just know it looks cool on the inside right here. And then in the front, of course, you're going to have Admiral Akbar and his chair. And then to cover all this back up, you just grab that entire side panel and put it back on. It is kind of tricky sometimes, but it's easy to get the hang of. And then really the last thing with this set to see is the stand and the underside. The stand just very easily pops off. It's not held on in a unique way or anything. And then there are some very minor details on the bottom of the ship itself. I'm honestly not sure what it's supposed to look like down here, but it is nice that LEGO actually puts some type of shaping down here and it's not just anti-studs. And then if you're wondering, the stand is just your very basic black mini-scale stand with the printed plaque on the front. I'm gonna go so far to say that I actually think this is the best January set. I mean, I might be a little bit biased just because I really like the home one and I'm super excited that LEGO finally made it, but I genuinely think it looks really good. I mean, I think this is on the same level as the Millennium Falcon and the Super Star Destroyer. It really is that good of a mini-scale set in my eyes. And it's actually reasonably priced compared to the others. I actually originally thought it was 80 until I bought it and realized it was 70, and that was kind of a surprise to me. Obviously, the perfect price point would probably be 65, but 70 is definitely good compared to the other sets that just released. And I know that with the Acclamator, I complained that it didn't have a minifigure, and that definitely still applies to this set in some sense. I think it would be fun if it did have a little Akbar minifigure, but unlike the Acclamator, this set is not near as overpriced as that set is. And the build itself is pretty much perfect. I mean, I couldn't find any flaws on it besides just nitpicks on my part. So I'm feeling a solid 9 out of 10 on this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more videos, you can see on the screen right now.